Hi, I'm Jasmine Persephone Jupiter. I'm a second year MFA in the Interactive Media and Games division at the School of Cinematic Arts. And I've worked on a couple of game projects already. I had Koshkas Coffee, which I was the narrative designer for, and that showed at the USC Games Expo, as well as the 41st International Asian American International Film Festival. And I just came out with a new game, Operator, that I made with the composer from Koshkas Coffee. And we're currently shopping that around at festivals right now. And I have a couple of exciting projects on the way, including a collaboration with students from the Tokyo Geidai University in Japan. Koshka's Coffee was created as the final project for one of the very first classes that the first year MFAs take in the interactive media program. We were placed onto a team of three. So it was me, Michelle Ma, and Cloud Tian. And we had to make a game during the last 4 weeks of class. And so we were really interested in creating something that had a strong narrative and that we could really leverage all of our skills for. So, for example, I'm a writer and I like wrote the narrative for the game. Michelle is like an amazing animator, one of the greatest animators I've ever encountered. So she was able to do all of the wonderful art in that game. And Cloud is a fantastic composer, and he created all the music for the game. And then Michelle put it all together in Unity because she's also a god tier programmer. And yeah, it was just a really perfect storm of like our talents. And the game, it was a really personal story for all of us, really, because it dealt with common themes, I think, that a lot of people in their mid 20s deal with, as far as complicated relationships with family and sort of ambivalent feelings about returning to your hometown. No, not at all. I mean, we were just trying to sort of do our best and get through the class. It just so happened, like I said, that it was sort of a perfect storm of all of our like just really strong skills, and we were all able to focus on that. And that sort of thing doesn't really happen very often. Sometimes you're forced into a partnership where you have to flex your muscles on a skill that you're not really the best at. And but in this one we were really just able to focus on our own lanes. And by the end of it, like we kind of had an idea once we got to the end of the class and we were showing our final play tests of the game, and people were like, wow, you made this in this class. Like this was something that like would have been like good for like the next level of the course. And so we were like, oh well, maybe we have something here. So I decided to try and shop us around at festivals, and it sort of exploded from there. So I'll start with trans game dev first. So trans game dev was started by a woman in the UK named Faye, and she was very dissatisfied with the sort of state of being a trans person in the industry, not really having community, potentially facing issues at work, discrimination, all sorts of issues. And so she really wanted to create a space where basically just as many trans people in the video game industry as possible could get together and sort of build power and talk to each other about what our experiences are, help each other out, and all those sorts of things. I was invited on day one. Basically, I was one of the first people to join the server. I'm like very active on Twitter, so as soon as she posted, I was like, ooh, that seems like something that I'd be interested in. So because I was like, I guess like one of the first people involved, she was like, "Do you also want to moderate?" And I sort of got sucked into that. But it's actually been really fun. Part of my duties as a moderator is to sort of screen all of the people because it's a trans only server. We want to maintain a safe space so that no one's personal information, because people are different levels of out. who join the server. They may not be out publicly, so we don't want any issues with personal information being compromised or shared outside of the server. So we have to vet everyone who comes in. So I've been able to interview so many amazing trans people who are either in the industry already, trying to get into the industry, students who are like all across the world trying to make video games. And it's just been such a heartwarming and wonderful experience meeting all of these people and helping this community out. As far as my podcast, um, I I'm a big fan of podcasts personally. I was really heavily influenced, I guess, by there's a podcast that's associated with the Revolutionary Left Radio podcast called Red Menace, and I am kind of acquaintances with the girl who runs that podcast, and I was sort of really inspired by her like framework for running it. It's a very like educational podcast. She goes through different texts and explains them, that sort of thing. And I was like, well, I think that it would be really cool if we had that for like Pan-African theory and other like issues of like Black history. So I approached my friend about it, and because I think like her and I have like a pretty good like rapport, and like we're both Black trans girls, and I just thought like this would just be like a cool like thing like to do. And so she was like, well, what if we made the podcast about the Black Power revolution that happened in Trinidad? And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. She's from Trinidad, so she knows like all about that sort of thing. And she was like, yeah, it's actually really interesting. So I looked into it, and I was like, whoa, like actually like this is it exists at like the nexus of so many different strands of like the global like Black liberation and like civil rights movement for Black people, that I was like, this story like needs to be told. So we have started out talking about like just the general history of the islands of Trinidad and Tobago, and because like we're making it mostly, I guess, for an American audience, and I didn't know any of this information when I started researching it. So we started from there, but it's just really interesting. And the podcast, once we get back to it, we've been having both of us have been having a lot of issues. Like I just moved. She's been having some issues with immigration actually. So things are good now, though. She was able to secure a very nice job, and her green card is on her way on its way. But yeah, it got scary there for a minute, if we're being honest. But yeah, hopefully we will be back, and there's just just so much overlap. We're currently talking about Eric Williams, who was the first prime minister of Trinidad, and just he had so much overlap between Kwame Nkrumah, who was the leader of the first president of independent Ghana, as well as just other incredible thinkers from Trinidad as well, like C.L.R. James, the author of Black Jacobins. We're about to introduce Kwame Ture in a couple of episodes. He's the um, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee chairperson, who actually was originally from Trinidad, moved to New York, got involved in the American Civil Rights Movement, marched with Martin Luther King, and just was involved in so many levels of like just Black liberation. From he was the unofficial president of the Black Panther Party. He later moved to Ghana to help out with the government over there, and just yeah, it's just really interesting, and a lot of really interesting intersections with the global story of Black liberation. Kind of actually, because when I was a really young kid, I was like, I loved video games so much. The very first game that I was ever exposed to was I was like in elementary school, and I went over to my friend's house, and they introduced me to StarCraft, which is like a game RTS game made by Blizzard Entertainment, and I was kind of hooked after that. Then I went over to my like cousin's house and got introduced to Kingdom Hearts. It was all downhill from there. She gave me her PS2, and I just sort of was just hooked on video games. The thing was though, like I didn't believe that I could make video games. Like I didn't think that was like a job that people could do. Um, but I was really interested in the topic. So actually, in high school, I took AP Computer Science, and I created my very first video game. it was a really silly game called Laser Space Dolphin Attack, and you play as a dolphin in space who like shoots lasers out of your blowhole and like at asteroids and stuff, and it was like cute. Um, but it was still like sort of like, oh, this is like a kind of silly thing. And I was also by that time really interested in getting involved in film. So I applied to USC and I got to USC, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be a film person. And then all of the friends that I made in undergrad and all of like the really like lasting relationships that I've had like with people from my undergrad experience were people in the games program. And I was like, wait, we had a games program this whole time. And so then I was like, okay, maybe I should like go back and try this one more time. So after I graduated, I took a year off because I was helping out with my partner. She had a lot of like mental health issues, so that was a struggle for about a year. Then I applied to USC and I got waitlisted. So then I was like, okay, what can I do? And my partner at the time was taking, like, she was in recovery and she was taking classes at Saddleback College, and she ran into this like poster, just like random poster on like this bulletin board in Saddleback that was like comic book company looking for interns or whatever. And I was like, okay, that seems interesting. And I applied, and it turns out that it was an augmented reality comic book company. So all of the books that we created, um, you could use your phone to point at the book, and then like things would happen, like animation, different music, all sorts of like cool things. So that's how I actually got involved in interactive media, like professionally. And I learned how to do 3D modeling and rigging. I did environment design for different like areas that we like placed took like the comic books took place in. And I also got a couple like I got my first experience doing writing. I wrote codex entries for a an augmented reality children's book called Creative Creature Catcher. And yeah, it was a amazing experience. I got to do a couple of contracts for Marvel Comics, and yeah, it, after that, I was able to use all of that work as a portfolio. Got into USC. The rest is history. I just really appreciate how at USC the students are encouraged to take as cross-disciplinary and collaborative an approach as possible. And it's not something that I've encountered at other institutions or like just anywhere really else. This real push in all across the university. I was involved when I was an undergraduate in thematic option and the Polymath Academy. um, Oh, I can speak to a, a specific memory in a second, but like all there were all sorts of initiatives all throughout when I my time here that have been trying to bring people together, bring people from all over the university from different disciplines together in order to make something new. And I think that that's extremely exciting. As for a specific memory, I did help organize the very first Polymathic Academy retreat to Catalina Island, and that was an absolute delight. I helped organize the first two retreats, and I'm so happy that unfortunately with COVID it hasn't been able to happen again. So I wasn't able to get back involved, but I was just so honored to see that it was continuing even after I had graduated. So yeah. Yes, I do. So right now I'm the biggest project that I'm working on at the moment is this collaboration with the students from Tokyo Geidai University. Y'all will be able to see the results of that collaboration at the USC Games Expo this coming May, April. And also, hopefully, fingers crossed, if I get accepted, my game that I made uh, with the composer from Koshkas Coffee will also be there so people can see that. It's actually out right now though. It's called Operator. You can find it on itch.io. And upcoming, I've got my thesis project, which is probably going to be the biggest project that I've worked on so far, and I'm going to be working on it for the entirety of my third year in this program. So y'all can see that at USC Games Expo 2022.